Everyone, what is going on? What is going on? I want to talk to you about a conversation that I was having with my Creator, with my Heavenly Father, God, and I was talking to him about the word healing. And I think so many of us need to be healed, but well before we can even get to that place of healing, we must know what healing is. And I think a lot of times, myself included, I've said on different broadcasts I've done in the past, well, that speaking to the fact that people need to be healed. And I agree with that. But as I was spending time with God and just kind of just diving into this conversation, or getting more about this healing, is that, wait a minute, people don't know what healing is. And to heal in its basic meaning is to perhaps restore something. Maybe if you're sick, got a cold, and you're being nursed to health or something, nursed back to health because you got a cold. And so now you get to a place where you're no longer coughing, and the coughing is gone now. And much like if a person breaks a leg or something like that, unfortunate situation, but now they're gone to the doctor. Doctor does what a doctor does in regards to fixing his bone or putting it back into place, and perhaps maybe surgery, but nevertheless at some point the person's leg is healed. But what about when we talk about the image and after the likeness of who God says we are? And most of us, let's just face it, most of us, including myself, have no idea what that healing looks like, because we've associated in most cases healing with healing of a broken bone, healing through a sickness or some kind of ailment that we may have been dealing with, or perhaps a cold, as I mentioned moments ago. So I think as far as that healing piece, that's what we're familiar with. But now, what about the healing that comes with who we are on a much deeper level, in regards to knowing who we are? And I think oftentimes, because we don't know who we are, we can find ourselves running from that person in the mirror, looking in the mirror, not liking what we look like or what he or she looks like, the different thoughts that are perhaps going through our head in regards to who is that person in the mirror. Maybe some of our past issues or challenges that we faced may have come up as we're looking in the mirror. And this is looking in the mirror for an extended period of time. And it's obvious all these things may not come up right away as you're looking into the mirror. But if you're looking into the mirror for an extended period of time and just looking at the reflection of yourself, what do you see? And I think a lot of times we can find ourselves running from that person in the mirror. We can achieve so many different things. And I think the person in the mirror, or at least that image, we don't like. And we can find ourselves running from that person and pursuing so many other things rather than getting to know the person in the mirror, or that part of us, that part of the person in the mirror that we are unacquainted with in most cases. So here lies the issue, is that many of us don't know what real healing is. We have a limited understanding of the word heal or healing. So I think it's important for us to understand that healing goes on a much deeper level. Healing of the soul, healing of the past experiences, healing of the wounds. And oftentimes I don't think we relate healing to those things. We see healing on such a, I believe, a remedial level. And truly, the person needs to be healed. That person on the inside needs to be healed. And you might well say, Curtis, still, I don't know what healing looks like. Well, I'm going to tell you what that healing looks like. When you open up your Bible. Now, and I'm going to say this, obviously not everyone is a believer or Christian on some level. And you might have a different kind of faith, and that's okay. But you have to understand, we all started from somewhere. There's a beginning. So even in the scriptures talks about in the beginning, there was essentially nothing. There was a spirit, or the spirit hovering over the water. And God began to speak. So there was a nothingness that was out there. And that nothingness was available to every last one of us. And it is where that nothingness, it's that nothingness and that space of seemingly that empty space where everything comes from. And that's the space where we need to get back to. Well, you might say, Curtis, how do I get back to that space? You've got to be prepared to offload the burden that's been placed on all of us to a degree. Some bigger, greater than others, some less than others, but nevertheless, these things constitute as a burden that we've all been carrying on some level. Some longer than others, but nevertheless, it also constitutes as enslavement to a degree. Because we can end up being a slave to our past experiences, a slave to our own thought process, again, from our experiences. And even once the experience has, to a degree, expired, meaning, and here's what I mean when I say expired, but meaning that the experience may have happened 10, 20 years ago. And our thought process can still be hanging on to that experience. The body may have healed in the sense that it was maybe a bruise or something through a relationship, an abusive relationship. The body may have healed outwardly, but inwardly, the mind still is holding on to that. And so that's what I'm saying needs to be healed, is the mind. And oftentimes, because the mind needs to be healed, we can end up projecting these things into one relationship and to the next relationship. And the interesting thing about this as well is that through this healing that needs to take place on the inside, and the projection and the dumping and the placing our burdens and our situations on other people, all this takes place when we're not healed inwardly, or the inner man is not healed. We end up dumping on people and not realizing that we're dumping on people because we're not healed. And it's like the representative comes up or shows up from time to time, and he or she, now this happens with both men and women, he or she will, or the representative that shows up, they will show up from a space appearing to be healed. But once that representative goes away, the reality sets in of the person needing to be healed, or a lot of their issues start to come up. And unfortunately, these issues have a tendency to, again, we as people have a tendency to offload our issues onto people. Unintentionally, I believe, but for the sake of believing that we might be ready for relationships, or ready to take on new opportunities, or just ready to do different things, we often send out the representative first. And in most cases, we're not ready. And so then we become unavailable to the person who is ready. Or not only that, I would say not so much or, but and, not only that, we begin to dump on that person a lot of times. We begin to ensnare that person, potentially ensnare that person with our stuff sometimes. The things that we are dealing with or have not dealt with through the unhealed person or unhealed experiences, we begin to dump on that person and to essentially ensnare that person, hold that person in captivity to a degree, enslave that person as well, because we're enslaved. And I'm sure many of you may have experienced where, especially in a relationship or maybe with your family or something, where you might come on, or even a job, you might walk into the office or walk to your house, or dealing with your family, where a family member is happy and laughing and just maybe telling jokes and just in a good space. And then because of what we may be dealing with, we're like, what the heck is so funny? And it can be difficult for us to be a part of the laughing or the joy that the other person might be having. But because of what we're dealing with, a lot of times we'll unplug everything. And what I mean by unplug everything, meaning that we'll inadvertently come and try to take the joy out of the moment. Turn everything off. All right, show's over. I don't see what's so funny, because we're going through different things. Now, if we would have walked into our home, again, place of business or family members or some other situation where people are around and no one was laughing, we would probably just continue on as nothing was happening. My point is that it can be difficult for us as people to deal with our stuff when we see other people having a good time, or at least appearing to have a good time. When we're in a space and they're yet in a different space, we're in most cases looking for someone to relate to what we're dealing with. And when they can't relate to what we're dealing with, ideally what we do as people, we try to pull the plug on the fun or the laughter that they're having to change the entire atmosphere or the environment, because we're going through something. And all of this happens so often, even in relationships, just in general. Whether you're dating someone, married to someone, significant other, also on our jobs as well. When you're dealing with people, just in relationships as a whole, this often happens. And that's why it's so imperative that we get the necessary healing on the inside. And I think so many of us, oftentimes, we're looking at things from the outside about this portrayal or this image of what it looks like on the outside, or how we're showing up outwardly, but inwardly we're a wreck. So I want to encourage all of those who will listen to this video and in its entirety. I would encourage you to share this video out with others, because it is truly important that we do the inner work. And now when we do the inner work, it has the power to affect others. And it does not mean that other people are going to come easy. This other people are just going to bow down and everything is going to be so wonderful. No, absolutely not. It doesn't mean it at all. It means that there's going to be a battle, so to speak, or a fight. And again, maybe not physical fight. And I don't mean that as, that's not what the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that there's going to be a contention in the air, the atmosphere, whenever change is about to take place, I should say. There's going to be contention, because everyone's not ready to change. And this is a reality that we have to deal with. Everyone is not ready to change. Some people are absolutely okay with where they're at. I won't say happy, but they're in their space. And sometimes it can be difficult taking people out of their space into a new space. And obviously they have to clearly be ready for it. But what happens when you're ready and the other person's not ready? That's a difficult place to be in. That means that you and I might have to make some decisions, whoever you are.